Ever feel like some arguments, they just totally hit the mark, and others just kind of fall flat?
Yeah.
It's like, is there some kind of secret code to making your point stick?
Yeah.
Well, today on this deep dive, I think we're going to be cracking that code.
Ooh,
That's
exciting.
so. We're going to be exploring how, like, word choice, sentence structure, even punctuation
Oh, wow.
can make or break a winning argument.
Yeah, I think that's so true, actually. A lot of people think, oh, argumentation, it's just about the facts. Like if you have the right facts, you're good. But it's so much more than that, right?
Absolutely.
It's about how you use language. It's like
Right.
a tool to build a persuasive case. It's really interesting.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be looking at today on this deep dive. We've got some awesome resources really focused on how students can level up their argumentation skills.
Okay, cool.
So we're talking about choosing the right words.
Mm.
We're talking about crafting like impactful sentences. And we're even going to touch on mastering the subtle art of punctuation.
The subtle art. I like that. I like that because it really is, it's nuanced.
It is.
It's like you wouldn't just build a house, right? You
Right.
wouldn't just start, throwing up walls without the right tools and blueprints and plans.
Without a plan.
Exactly. Argumentation's the same, I think. Words are your bricks. Sentences are your framework.
Nice.
And punctuation, those are like the nails, holding it all together.
Love it. Okay, so let's start with the foundation then.
All right.
Words. One of the things that really stood out to me going through these sources was this whole idea that students need to be able to strategically choose their words to really advance their argument.
Hmm.
It's not just about finding synonyms,
Yeah.
right, like using a thesaurus.
Right.
It's about understanding how different words can change the tone, the style of your argument.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about setting the right tone, right? Like, think about a conversation. If you're talking about a serious topic, you're not going to use like slang
Right.
or overly casual language, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same in writing.
Yeah, matching your language to your audience, your purpose, all of that.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what we mean when we say convey a specific tone or style. Do you want to sound authoritative?
Right.
Do you want to sound objective, passionate? Your word choices, they have a huge role in that, creating that effect.
Yeah, and this reminds me, I was reading about this too, about the importance of maintaining like an academic and neutral tone,
Yeah.
especially in more formal arguments.
Right.
But how do you actually do that? Is it just about avoiding slang?
It's more than avoiding slang. It's about choosing words that are really precise and clear and avoiding like vague terms or cliches, which can actually weaken your argument.
Okay, so can you give me like an example? What do you mean?
Sure, yeah. So let's say you're arguing that a certain policy, like a government policy or something, is ineffective.
Right.
You could just say, the policy is bad, but that's kind of a weak statement. A stronger approach would be to say something like, this policy has proven to be detrimental, failing to achieve its intended goals.
Right. Because that second example, it's more specific. It gives us more context, right? It's
Right.
not just like an opinion, it's the evidence behind it.
Exactly, yeah. And by using stronger language, like more precise language, you also make your argument sound more credible, more persuasive.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes me think about, you know, choosing words that are not only accurate but also impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to kind of strike that balance, like
Yeah.
between being clear but also engaging?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about finding the right words to paint a picture, really, in the reader's mind. So think about using strong verbs,
Okay.
descriptive adjectives that paint a clear picture, maybe even evoke some emotion.
So it's not just about the information, it's about making the reader feel something.
Exactly, yeah. And that's where the power of comparisons comes in, like using analogies, metaphors,
Yeah.
can be really effective to make complex ideas more relatable, more memorable.
Yeah. Because sometimes an analogy, it clicks, like a light bulb moment for the reader.
I love that analogy.
Thanks.
Speaking of making things click, let's move on to another key element, which is sentence structure.
Oh, go.
How do we put these words together?
Okay, so we all know how to write a basic sentence.
We do.
Subject, verb, object.
Yes.
But is there more to it than that when it comes to building a strong argument?
Absolutely. One of the sources that I was looking at, it emphasized that students need to be able to write sentences that clearly convey their ideas and arguments.
Okay.
And that means going beyond simple sentences, using a variety of sentence structures to add depth and complexity.
So it's about being intentional with how we arrange those words
Hmm.
within a sentence.
Exactly. Yeah. Think of it like building a house, right? You're not going to just stack bricks on top of each other without a plan. You need to create a structure that is strong, but also aesthetically pleasing.
Right, so how do we do that with sentences? Where do we even begin?
Well, I think one key aspect is using a variety of sentence lengths and structures.
Okay.
So short declarative sentences, they can be impactful,
Mm-hmm.
but longer, more complex sentences can be used to kind of develop ideas in more detail.
So it's about finding that rhythm,
Yeah.
that flow.
Precisely. And one technique that can be really helpful is using dependent clauses.
Okay, now those are the clauses that can't stand alone as a sentence, right?
That's right, yeah. They depend on an independent clause to make sense.
Okay.
And while they can sometimes make sentences more complex, they also can be incredibly useful for adding clarity
Okay.
and emphasis to your arguments.
Oh, interesting. So can you give me an example?
Sure, let's say you're arguing that a certain historical figure was a visionary leader.
Okay.
You could simply state, the leader was visionary, but that doesn't tell us much, right? By adding a dependent clause, you could say, the leader who guided the nation through a period of unprecedented growth and prosperity, so you're giving a reason, was truly visionary.
Right, that extra information, it really just, it fleshes out the argument. It
Yeah.
makes it more convincing, right? It's not just stating a fact, it's explaining why that fact matters.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the power of these dependent clauses. They allow you to add nuance, complexity to those sentences, making your arguments more sophisticated and persuasive.
See, this is making me realize that sentence structure, it's about so much more than just grammar rules.
It is.
It's about really crafting sentences
Yeah.
that are grammatically correct,
Yeah.
but also strategically designed to advance your argument.
Yeah. It's about using the tools of language to build a compelling case, to persuade your audience.
Absolutely. And I have a feeling there's even more to uncover here as we go.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
There's a lot more.
We've just started. There's always more, isn't there, when it comes to argumentation?
Always more to learn, right? It really does feel like there's a whole world, like possibilities within a single sentence.
Yeah.
It's not just about putting the words in the right order.
Right.
It's about making those like conscious choices
Yeah.
to create that effect you're going for.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful ways to control that effect is through punctuation.
Punctuation.
So-
Punctuation.
Okay, so I'll be honest, punctuation is kind of like my Achilles heel.
Okay.
It can feel like this minefield
Yep.
of like rules and exceptions.
I get that.
But I'm sensing it's more than just getting the commas and periods in the right spot, right?
It's so much more than that. Think of punctuation like the conductor of your orchestra of words.
Oh, okay.
It guides the reader, tells them when to pause, when to emphasize, when to shift their focus.
So it's about using punctuation strategically
Yes,
to enhance the clarity and the impact of our argument.
precisely. Yeah. And actually, one of the sources highlighted how essential it is for students to master these established conventions.
Of grammar and mechanics to communicate effectively. And that includes understanding how punctuation can be used to create specific effects.
So can you give us, like, some examples of how this works in practice?
Sure.
Let's say we're trying to write a sentence that, like, really drives home a point.
Right.
How can punctuation help us do that?
Well, think about even something like the period.
Okay.
It marks the end of a thought, but it can also create a sense of finality, even drama.
Hmm.
A short declarative sentence ending with a period can have a really strong impact, especially if it comes after, like, a series of longer sentences.
It's like that sudden stop that makes the reader pay attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, imagine you want to add a bit more nuance or complexity to that sentence.
Huh.
You could use a semicolon to connect two closely related independent clauses, creating a sense of balance and flow.
Okay, so it's not just about separating sentences.
Right.
It's about showing how ideas connect to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have the more expressive punctuation marks like the M dash,
Yeah.
which can be used to create a sense of interruption or to add an unexpected twist to a sentence.
It's like that, like, dramatic pause
Yeah.
that draws the reader in.
Exactly. And parentheses can be used to, like, insert additional information or a side comment without disrupting the flow of the main sentence.
It's like a little whisper
Yes.
that adds like another layer to the main
Exactly. I
conversation.
like that analogy.
That's
And let's not forget about quotation marks.
Yep.
You know, they can be used to signal that you're using a word or phrase in a specific way, perhaps to highlight its importance or to create a sense of irony.
It's like putting a spotlight on a particular word or phrase,
Yes.
making it stand out.
Exactly. And then you have italics, which can be used to emphasize a word or phrase or to indicate a title or a foreign word.
Okay.
It's about choosing the right tool for the right job, really understanding how each punctuation mark can contribute to the overall effect of your writing.
This is making me realize that punctuation isn't just about, like, following the rules. It's about making these deliberate choices
Yes.
to shape the reader's experience.
It's about using punctuation as a tool to craft a clear, engaging, and ultimately persuasive argument.
Okay, so we've talked about the power of words, the importance of sentence structure, and this strategic use of punctuation.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that we need to consider when it comes to, like, mastering this art of argumentation?
You know, there's one more essential element we haven't mentioned yet, and that's the foundation of it all. Grammar and mechanics.
Oh, okay, you mean things like subject-verb agreement, using the right tense,
Exactly.
all that good stuff.
Yeah, while these might seem like kind of basic concepts, they're absolutely crucial
Yeah.
for effective communication. You know, think of grammar and mechanics as the mortar that holds your bricks together.
Okay.
If the mortar's weak, the whole structure is going to crumble.
So even if we have, like, these brilliant ideas and strong arguments, they won't land if our grammar and mechanics are sloppy.
That's right. Poor grammar and mechanics can distract the reader. They can undermine your credibility and ultimately weaken your argument. It's like showing up to a job interview in wrinkled clothes.
Right.
You know, you might have the skills and experience, but you're not making the best first impression.
Not a good look.
Not a good look.
So how can we make sure that our grammar and mechanics are, like, up to par?
Well, it starts with a solid understanding of the basic rules of grammar and punctuation.
Right.
But it also involves careful proofreading and editing. Sometimes it helps to have a fresh pair of eyes look over your work.
It does. It's easy to miss our own mistakes when we're so close to it,
It is.
especially when we're so focused on the content.
Exactly. And there are so many great resources available, you know, to help.
Yeah.
There's online grammar checkers, style guides, even writing tutors.
Yeah. There's a lot out there.
It can be invaluable.
Totally. It sounds like mastering grammar and mechanics.
Yeah.
It's this, like, ongoing process,
It is.
this commitment to constantly refining our skills.
It is, but it's a worthwhile investment because clear and effective communication, that's essential in every aspect of our lives, not just in academic writing.
This is making me think about how all these elements we've discussed, word choice, sentence structure, punctuation, grammar, mechanics, they all, like, work together
They do.
to create that powerful argument. It's like they're all pieces of the puzzle
They are.
that fit together to create this, like, complete picture.
Exactly. And when
Yeah.
all those pieces are in place, your writing becomes more than just words on a page. It becomes a tool for shaping thoughts, influencing opinions, and ultimately making a difference in the world.
Yeah, it really is powerful when you think about
It
it.
is.
Like, just how much we can kind of shape and influence the world
Yeah.
around us through writing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes we forget
Mm-hmm.
that writing isn't just about, you know, those big ideas and those, like, sweeping arguments.
Yeah.
It's also about the, like, nitty-gritty,
Yeah.
the nuts and bolts that hold everything together.
You're absolutely right. Mastering those fundamentals, grammar and mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
that's just as important
Right.
as developing strong arguments, using compelling language. It's all part of the toolkit.
It is. It is. And it's a toolkit that, you know, students especially
Yes.
need to be equipped with.
For sure.
I remember one of the sources that, like, emphasized how important it is for students to be able to, you know, really select words
Yeah.
and use those elements of a composition
Yeah.
to advance an argument.
Right.
It's like they're being given the blueprints
I like that.
to build that strong case.
Yeah, and just like a skilled architect needs to understand, you know, the properties of different materials.
Right.
Students need to understand how these different elements of writing work together.
Totally.
They need to know which words are going to create that tone,
Mm.
how to structure those sentences for clarity and impact, how punctuation can guide the reader.
It's like giving them that power
It is.
to express themselves effectively and persuasively.
Exactly, and that's why I think it's so important to go beyond just teaching grammar rules.
Right.
and punctuation marks.
Yeah.
Students need to understand the why behind those choices,
Yeah, the why.
how they can use them strategically to enhance their writing.
Right, so it's moving from memorization to application,
It is.
from knowing the rules to using them
Exactly.
to craft those arguments.
And that's where that real learning happens.
Mm.
When students start to see language not just as like a set of rules,
Mm-hmm.
but as a flexible and powerful tool, that's when they can really master the art of argumentation.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive here,
Yeah.
let's circle back to where we started.
Okay.
We talked about the importance of choosing the right words.
Yes.
Crafting those impactful sentences, punctuation, grammar, mechanics. Like, it's clear all these things, they're all connected, working together to create that powerful argument.
They are all connected.
And it's a skill that can be learned, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Honed with practice.
With practice.
The more we pay attention to these details, the more effectively we can communicate our ideas.
And make our voices heard.
Exactly. So here's something to think about, a little food for thought for our listeners.
Okay.
Think about a time when you felt like you really nailed an argument. Maybe it was something you wrote, a presentation, even just, a casual conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What were those key elements that made it successful? Did you use strong language, impactful sentences? Were you using your punctuation strategically? Think about it.
Yeah, it's a great exercise, just to kind of reflect
Yeah.
on what works
Yeah.
and why it works. And remember, it's a journey, becoming a master communicator. It's ongoing. There's always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
It's always something new to learn.
So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep writing.
Keep writing.
Because the world needs to hear your voice.
Yeah,
And these tools of language we're talking about today, they're here to help you make it heard.
that's right.